Rhonda, thank you for joining us here at the Texans for Fiscal Responsibility booth at the Republican Party of Texas Convention for 2026. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. I wanted to spend just a little bit of time with you and talk to you about one of the most critical issues facing Texas families right now, which is property taxes. We hear this all the time from folks about the skyrocketing growth of property taxes and how folks can't really afford it anymore. And I wanted to hear a little bit about your experience in the property tax space, in the property tax world. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and your background?
Yes, I live in this world every day. I'm a certified real estate appraiser. I'm also a licensed property tax consultant, and I've also served on the Appraisal Review Board and as chair of the Appraisal Review Board in Nacogdoches County.
Okay.
I'm currently serving as the chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, so I live in the residential space every day. We're at unsustainable levels with property tax. People are literally losing their homes because of the escrow. It's not the mortgage, it's the escrow account, which, as we know, is your taxes and insurance. And that's just, it's at egregious levels at this point. And the other thing we have to remember is the average age right now to buy a home in Texas is 40 years old. And I know there's been talk about lowering that homestead exemption, the $200,000, from 65 and over to 55 and over. Well, we need to be very cognizant of the fact that we're going to overburden our young people. From 40 to 55, they're going to be pretty much the ones paying taxes, because under 40, they're not really buying houses.
Yeah.
So that's a huge concern.
Yeah.
Huge.
Well, and that's also a great point about the fact that, as you mentioned, the average age to buy a home now is about 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can see how the property tax burden is significantly contributing to younger folks, even younger than 40, not being able to afford to be able to essentially attain the American dream like our parents or grandparents before us.
Correct.
They can't afford to be able to get into the housing market.
No.
You know, you've got people coming out of college, getting married, and they can't even afford to buy a home and start their lives.
No.
So,
and then inversely, we have our over 65 group that, yes, your property taxes, your school taxes are frozen at 65, but cities, counties, MUD districts, ESDs, that's an option for them to participate in that. So, for me, probably this isn't a one-off story either. As a real estate appraiser, I go in people's homes, I take photos, I assess condition features to determine a fair market value. And when you have people in their 70s and 80s that are doing a home equity loan, the home is paid for. They're doing a home equity loan and they tell you, well, we owe our taxes. And then they look at you before they leave and say, our kids aren't going to find out about this appraisal, are they? And you're just, of course they don't. I work for the lender. But you realize these children, they're so proud they're not going to ask their children for money or to let them know we can't pay the taxes. And so now they're borrowing on their homestead to pay their taxes. And that just shouldn't be happening in Texas.
would you say that this really needs to be the issue of not just property tax relief, but ultimately eliminating property taxes in Texas should be a legislative priority going into this next session?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It has to be. The foreclosures are at the highest level they've been in 6 years, and it is due to escrow, to taxes and insurance. It's people's, like I said, now that is more than their mortgage, their escrow account, and that's not anything they can budget for. And I would really like to see, right now we're at 10%, of raising fair market value. In my area of East Texas in Senate District 3, the appreciation rate for housing market is about 2 to 3% a year. So why are we increasing it by 10% a year across the board? And even when I ran numbers for the last 15 years, Texas housing market appreciation rate on average, this includes metro areas, Austin, Houston, McKinney, all your areas that are growing pretty fast, your appreciation rate is still 4 to 6%. That makes the average 5. Why are we increasing our homestead, our property values 10% when that's not even the rate of appreciation?
Yeah.
It's double the rate of appreciation.
That's right. That's
So I would really like to see that at about 3%.
Yeah.
So that's something that people could budget for.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here again at TFR's booth at the Republican Party of Texas 2026 convention.
Yes.
Hope you have a wonderful time here. Thank you for all your work that you do. And we look forward to continuing our work together as we move forward for taxpayers and families across the state.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.